Good evening to everyone. Welcome to 7 Days 7 webinars on wildlife on the occasion of Wildlife Week 2024, conducted by Aghanaashini Nature Foundation. Aghanaashini Nature Foundation is an environmental conservation organization by providing nature education, awareness, and outreach program for students and community people. I hope you all attended yesterday's webinar. This is third webinar on the occasion of Wildlife Week 2024. So today we have webinar on Secret Life of Amphibians by Dr. Vineeth Kumar. Dr. Vineeth Kumar is an avid nature lover and a wildlife photographer. His research interest includes amphibian ecology and behavior, specifically acoustic communication in frogs. He has written a book on Birds of Nitte Campus and also discovered new species of frog from southwest coast of India. I request Vineet sir to take over the session, please.
Very good evening to all the dear participants. I hope I'm audible to you. So today I'll be talking on the secret life of amphibians. As you know, amphibians are a very interesting group of vertebrates uh, where we see phenomenal behavioral traits and natural history. So this is my focal species, that is amphibians. In that, specifically, I'll be talking on frogs because my area of research and interest is on frogs. So, in this session, I'll be mainly talking on the behavior and natural history aspects of amphibians, specifically frogs. Okay, so let's go ahead. Amphibians are a group of vertebrate, means they have backbone. And if I ask any maybe school kid, he will say that amphibian is something that lives on land and water. So, what is an amphibian, by the way? Is it that something that lives in water and land? And what about these creatures, like, for example, humans? Maybe we are able to swim in water, or maybe an elephant is able to get into water and maybe swim profusely. And also a crocodile, which can also be actively swimming in water. So, do they become amphibians? Of course, no. That then what is the actual meaning of word amphibian? Amphibian, in true sense, in Greek, if you split these words, you get two words, that is amphi and bios, which means amphi means two and bios means life, which means something that has the two life stages, means it has the biphasic life. When we call them as amphibians, you know that they have two life stages. One is an aquatic stage called tadpole stage, which is the larval stage of an amphibian, and an adult stage, which is either a frog or a salamander or a newt, since they undergo this sort of a change in their morphology or external traits. We call this phenomenon as metamorphosis also. This is the only group of vertebrates to show metamorphosis. That's quite interesting and very specific to this group. Okay? So if you see, they lay eggs in water most of the time, but there are exceptions to this. Eggs can be even terrestrial also, which I'll come to it little later. And these eggs are very interesting in terms their life is very transparent. You see, you can see through these eggs. If you take these eggs under a microscope and see that, you will be able to see how beautifully the cleavage and the embryogenesis or formation of embryo is taking place. Because if you see this black spot is called animal pole, where you see the embryo will divide. This is the zygote which is formed. Okay, so this is eggs of a frog. So eggs are anamniotic eggs, means they barely have no protection. It's just covered by a thick jelly coating called mucilaginous sheet. Otherwise, it's not protected at all, unlike or birds' eggs or reptiles' eggs or mammals' eggs. Okay, because even in some mammals we have eggs like in and platypus. So these eggs are very special, and you can see. I will just play this video. You can see inside the eggs these uh, tadpoles are rolling around. You can see their life is so transparent. That is the beauty of amphibians, because you can really sit there and study them for your entire life. So, okay. So this is, you can see, I hope you're able to see the movement inside the eggs. So the growing tadpoles. These are terrestrial. If you see the definition that tadpoles are aquatic is changing, because we have discovered a lot of species recently. Those are actually completely terrestrial. These eggs are laid on terrestrial habitats instead of being water. And these are called tadpoles. So once after the embryo is grown, it becomes a young larvae called tadpoles. And tadpoles look like fishes, but how do we really differentiate tadpoles from fishes? So if you see, this is the tadpole. So tadpole can be differentiated from fishes with a lack of paired fins and other fins. They have only one fin in their tail called caudal fin or tail fin. And also, a fish will never have a leg because it belongs to the group Pisces or fishes. This is a tetrapod. Eventually, this is going to develop forelimbs and hind limbs. And beauty of this difference between this and any other tetrapod, this has only four digits on the forelimb, which I can't show here because you can only see hind limb. You can see five digits here, but forelimb will only have four digits. This is how the adult frog would look like, which you have all seen, I believe, a frog and a toad. And even other adults could be salamanders and Sicilians, etc. So amphibians are not only frogs, even though the majority of them are frogs and toads, but amphibian doesn't mean it's a frog. It means there are three groups of animals or vertebrates which can be called as amphibians. So if you see here, this is a frog or a toad maybe, but they are genetically quite sort of similar, but morphologically they are different. So you can see this is a tailed amphibian, which is a salamander or a newt, and there's a legless amphibian. Apoda means leg, poda means leg, apoda means no leg. These are called Sicilians. Ichthyope is the common example, or Dysgeniope. Such examples you can see. Urodila means with tail, and Ura means no tail. So there are three distinctive groups or orders of amphibians called Anura, Urodila, and Apoda. And amphibians have come much before us. You know that the entire life history on this planet can be divided into eras, periods, and epochs, and so on. So we have come very, very recently in the Holocene epoch of the Cenozoic era. But if you see, amphibians are much, much older. They have originated somewhere in the Carboniferous period of the Paleozoic era, which is much primitive, much before even those charismatic dinosaurs. So I can say that amphibians have lived and seen a dinosaur, unlike us who are ecologically and evolutionarily very young. We are just about 1.8 to 2 million year old species on this planet. So we are one of the youngest species on this planet. But look at the impact what we are having on this planet. And to specify which are the smallest and largest species of amphibians, so far the oldest fossil record is the Paedrobatrachus, which goes up to about 300 plus million years old. And the largest is the salamander, which is a Chinese giant salamander, as you can see, and also Japanese. This is the Japanese giant salamander, which can go fairly up to about 4 to 5 feet. You can see how big they can go. And among the frogs, the largest will be Goliath frog. Goliath means big in any group of animals. So, and the smallest of all the frogs is this Papuan rice frog, which is called Pedophrine amoensis, or Papuan. It can sit comfortably on your thumbnail. And they are also part of a culture. You know that frogs are also, there is a mention of frogs in Rig Vedas, which is one of the oldest culture, literatures in the history of India. They are mentioned even in our Rig Vedas, and also in the culture. They are part of a culture because we feel that whenever there is no rain, if we get some couple of frogs, male and female, and get them married in a ceremony called frog marriage, you can also get rain, which partially is not true, because if you just make the frogs marry, there will be rain. But what it symbolizes is that they are a messenger of the monsoon or the rains, because frogs become active in the monsoon season. So it is a symbolic representation of sort of an urge for monsoon or rains. I think you can, I think there will be module. You see how people involved in frog marriages are part of the culture. You know that in a lot of parts of India, frog marriages are such. But how is it good or bad? That's debatable. But yeah, it's part of the culture. And also, there's a temple in which the front statue or the god statue is made up of a frog, because this is a story that there's a king called Bakut Singh in Uttar Pradesh who didn't have any children, and the mantri said that if you build a temple where you will have a frog as the god stone, then definitely you pray to that Shiva, Lord Shiva, who is Narmadeshwar there, and you will get children. So this also symbolizes that frogs or amphibians per se are also a symbol of fertility because they lay a lot of eggs. In a spawn, they can lay close to 3,000 eggs, some of the large frogs. So they also symbolize fertility. So they're symbol of fertility. And they are vertebrates, as you know, they have a backbone just like us. Means evolutionarily, we are very close to these groups than insects and other groups. So they have a vertebral column made up of 10 bones. And among amphibians, specifically anurans or frogs and toads, how do we differentiate a frog from a toad? If you see here, this is a frog because frogs generally have a slippery and smooth skin. They won't have any spiny protrusions on their body. So if you see this animal here. They have cornified skin with the spiculate keratinified or keratinized skin. You can see they have warty, we can say overall warty, and also they have parotid glands. Okay? So if you see a frog which looks with this warty appearance, it's a toad actually. It's not a frog. Okay, so remember that. And also the hind limbs are comparatively shorter in toads compared to frogs. Frogs generally have a longer hind limb because frogs can jump to longer distance, whereas these generally hop. So if you see a hopping creature, which is probably a toad, not a frog. Okay, so I'll just run through some images. You can just see. So you can just try to answer whether it's a frog or a toad. But yeah, since that facility is not there, I just tell you this is a toad, of course, what you thought is right. And see if the skin is uh, sort of moist, it is a frog. This here may look like a toad, it's not warts. These are just some glandular markings on the body or granules. So this since the skin is moist, this is also a frog. And here, because there's no moisture on the skin, it's a toad. And here, even though it looks like a toad, these are just glandular spots or patches on the body. This is again a frog. It's a bullfrog. Okay. So what do you meet? Say if you meet a toad, you'd say what's up because yeah, toads have warts. Okay. So parts of the frog or a toad. So these are the parts of a frog or a toad. When you see a frog in the field, how do you sort of recognize that? You have many features which have to be taken into account to sort of specifically identify it to a specific genus or a family or a species because species level identification may be very difficult in the group of amphibians because of crypticism. But however, you can identify them up to genus level or family level. So you have to note this character now. And this is an ear. They don't have a pinna like us. Pinna is a character of mammals. They have just an open eardrum where the sound will hit, then it goes into the middle ear and inner ear. And they have a flank, which is the side part of the body, and they have a groin where the body or the trunk joins the legs, and they have forelimb and hind. This is the hind limb. This is the forelimb. So forelimbs are shorter than hind limbs, and they have a large mouth. You can see that their mouth almost extends till their tympana. Means if we are a frog, our mouth would be ending at our ears. So they have such a large mouth because they don't have teeth generally in their mouth, so they have to gulp their prey like that. Okay. So frog calls are very interesting. Frogs produce calls, and specifically male frogs produce sounds. But it is also noted in some species that females also can give reciprocal calls to say that, hey, I'm here. Okay. This is be in search of one of the elusive frogs which calls like. But however, sound doesn't work here. But I can suggest you the video. It's called Job Night Frog. It calls like a bird. Like it usually calls like a bird. You can see it takes air and then sort of breathes in, and when it exhales, it has a vocal tract which amplifies the sound. You can see that how vocal tracts come out from the slide. So that is the call. You can see vocal tract bulb. So that vocal tract helps to amplify the sounds. And these are the egg clutches. That means this is a male. So male generally mates with the female, and females uh, come closer to males by listening to their sounds. It's like females are very specific to specific characteristics of the sounds of the male. So they're able to differentiate the male of that particular species and another species, so that they avoid mating with other species. So call also helps in sexual selection in frogs. So this is the egg clutch of the same individual. can see how these frogs also guard their eggs. And very interestingly, this particular frog is called night frog, if you want to know, because of the wrinkled skin nature and also rhombus eye to see clearly. And these frogs, males also, you can see they generally stay very close to the egg clutches, probably that they are guarding their eggs. Okay. So in this image, you can see the expression. It's saying that, oh, don't come close to me, so that no, you don't disturb me. Like. And some of them have a large vocal sac below their throat called subgular vocal sacs, which is very common in groups like bush frogs, and even other groups also may show that, but generally very conspicuous in bush frog. You can see how it vibrates. Yeah. So the function of these vocal sacs is to increase the intensity of sounds or amplify the sounds, because they live in such a densely noise environment that their calls may be masked by the background noises. So to avoid that to be heard by the females, males have a special equipment which is internally built, which is called vocal sacs. And this is how you can see this vocal sac is actually here. Because many think that, oh, where is the vocal sac really? Is it really there? So here in this video, you can clearly see that vocal sac is a real thing. Okay, you can see it here. Yeah, look at that. So vocal sac is always there, but only when air is exhaled through the mouth, it comes in through a slit into from the larynx into this vocal sacs. Then the vocal sacs amplify. Okay. Why frogs call? Of course, you know that frogs call to sort of tell that, oh, I'm here. Okay, generally for the female. But is it the only purpose they call? It's of course they call for females, as you see. But there are also other purposes. They can also say that they are conspecifics or the members of the same species that don't come close. It could be territorial calls that this is my space. Don't come close. If you come close, I'm going to just kick you and get rid of you. Okay. Or it may be a sort of distress call also, where uh, frog, if it is being eaten by a snake, it may give a type of a shrieky note, which is actually distress call. Sometimes even females, when they are not ready for amplexus or mating, they may also give a release call. So there are different calls in different contexts. So don't think that always call is advertisement call or mating call. It can be even other types of calls. So you can also work on the calls and see every species what are the different types of sounds they make, and also sort of study their acoustics. How they call, as I told you, they pass air from the lungs through the vocal folds. Like us only, they have vocal folds in their throat. And when the air passes through that, sound is created because of the vibration of vocal cords. And then the air goes directly not out to the mouth through the vocal sacs. So this vocal sacs vibrate and amplifying or resonating the sounds. So this is a beautiful mechanism. Uh, I don't think any other group has such mechanism to amplify the sounds. Okay, this is the only group probably other than insects where they have stridulations and etc. to amplify their sounds. But this is quite interesting. It's as if you're using a microphone to a gathering of 1,000 people, maybe, right? So because this is very important as they're living in a very crowded or noisy environment. Okay? These are the calls which I mentioned already. And vocal sacs can be different types, gular, paired, subgular, or bilobate, or maybe the lateral ones. So different species may have different types of vocal sacs, which you can observe only in the field because you have to observe what is the type of vocal sac, then you can say. But the most common one would be subgular, and this is generally seen in cricket frogs and skippering frogs. Lateral vocal sacs are seen in bullfrogs in India. And why frog calls are important, why I'm stressing so much on frog calls is because uh, unlike birds, say I'm also a bird watcher, we identify birds easily through their morphology, means we can say that they have blue wings or maybe blue tail or red colored beak. But here in frogs, the taxonomy is not that easy and it is sort of very dynamic. It keeps on changing. As a result, calls play a very important role in species delineation, means understanding what species is that. So if you see for an untrained eye, uh, many species may look alike, but this is a different species. Anyways, I can't play the sounds, so not to worry. Each of them have different type of sounds here, which I was supposed to play, but anyways, there's some glitch audio which I can play. So this first one is Microhella rubra, which has a slightly different call, and Microhella ornata calls it, and Microhella laterate and foliar we have calls like Z. If the Z is much longer, it could be showing a Z. It could be Z. It could be laterite narrow mouth frog. And Microhella cordial calls TTT, TTT. So it is very interesting to note that every species has innate ability to produce its own species specific call repertoires. So it's very important to understand from taxonomy perspective also, acoustics is playing a very important role in delineation of species. Okay. And to report some interesting observations in the recent past, there's we believe that all frogs have to call. No, it need not be. There's a frog which is completely that it can't hear because it lacks tympanum. So it has ear apparatus, it has middle ear and inner ear, but tympanum, which is the outermost ear, is lacking. Then how do they really listen? It's already experimented by a team of researchers in Herculean frogs from South America that they have found that their skin is acting like a vibrating apparatus, and the skin sends information into their um, internal ear, middle ear, and internal ear via the eustachian canal. You know that there's a tube called eustachian canal which is connected from mouth to ear for your information, which helps in balancing the pressure. So the same tube can be sort of conveying the message to the skin. Okay, and also here another frog, uh, gardener frog, which is also doing the same thing, but it is hearing through the mouth, which is quite interesting. I have not heard anything like this because they keep their mouth open, and through the eustachian tube, again, the signals go because they don't have conspicuous tympanum to receive the sound signals. And also, there's a report that this particular species called pink toadlets have lost their complete hearing apparatus, but still they call. We don't know why, because evolutionarily they have lost the ability to call. But here, but still they're calling. So it's quite interesting. It is already accepted and published in scientific reports. And also, this is one more frog which can, it's called American green tree frog, which can inflate uh, its lungs, and the vibrations of the sound hits the lungs, and it acts like a masking for the other sounds, so that their tympanum can receive only the sounds what is coming from the same species. So quite interesting. So its lungs are acting like a noise cancelling headphones. Quite fascinating. Here is one more species, a speechless and lungless amphibian. We believe so far that all amphibians make sounds, but here is a species which don't even have lungs. So then you may ask me, oh, lungless, how do they breathe? You know that the frogs have multimodal respiration. They can even breathe through their mouth and their skin if they lack lungs. Okay, and as a tadpole, it would be through gills. And their diet includes a variety of species of insects, and they have a tongue which is folded and kept back on their. Unlike our tongue is attached to the back of the floor of the mouth, the tongue of the frogs is attached to the front of the mouth, and the tongue comes out and it has a fluid secretion. You can see in this video. And one more interesting fact is that frogs have to close their eyes when they eat because the eye sockets push the food into their gullet. Almost all the frogs close their eyes, you can see clearly, because the eyeballs go inside and push the food into the opening of the food pipe. Okay. And combat, some of the species also may say show combat. They fight for different purposes. Only because the sex ratios, the number of species or number of individuals of females are less compared to males. So generally, males involved in this type of fighting. Okay, it's called combat. Escape, some of them have escape strategies. You know that ecosemitism, where bright colors are said to be toxic. Some of these toads have bright colors. So you can see the underside of this particular toad called Malabar torrent toad. The genus name has changed, anyway, but it is completely red and yellow in color. Any bright colors in nature are said to be dangerous. And also you can see how well they blend in their environment. Reproduction, they have a very interesting mode of reproduction. You know that these per se don't have any copulatory structures, but still the male holds the female during pre-fertilization act. So male is going to just sit on the female. It's called embracing or amplexus. And why the amplexus? Amplexus just triggers the females to release eggs. So it is not that there is no internal fertilization, completely external fertilization. This is a pre-fertilization event where the male is just a tender act of holding the female. Okay, and this is how they generally hold the female in their axillary region, which promotes the females to release the egg. Male will release the semen or the sperm, and the fusion of the semen or sperm and egg happens outside the body. And based on what are the different types of embracing they have, there are seven modes of amplexes which has been defined. This is one of the new modes which is described from India. Even recently, also one more new mode has been described, where egg laying mode has been described in Andaman. So towards terrestriality, what I mean is, are frogs really laying eggs in water? No. And are there really need to be tadpoles should be there? No. The answer is they are moving towards terrestriality. Some of the frogs recently evolved frogs, we have seen that they lay their eggs in the ground, and also, their eggs, tadpoles develop directly inside. You can see how beautiful, and young froglet, you can see growing as if in the mother's womb, how the fetus is there. Similar, you can see how transparent is their life. You can see through them. You can study every stages of amphibian. That's why this group is quite fascinating, because it's very easy to observe them. So this is a bush frog. This is specifically bush frog, in which in Agumbe, I was able to sort of photograph this, where I was able to see about 10 to 15 individuals who were just about to emerge. They would just make a small opening in the mucilage of membrane, just pop out from the egg. So the young froglets come out from the egg. Tadpoles may they miss that stage. You can see this already. I've shown the video. These are unique tadpoles. There's a group called leaping frogs in India, which are unique tadpoles which are completely terrestrial. You can see how it is creating on algae. So it is need not be that all tadpoles need to be aquatic. No, there are tadpoles which are completely terrestrial. It happens when the frogs park illegally, they get towed. So not that towed here. Mud packing. Mud packing is another interesting behavior. Here, what happens is, initially, this is seen in night frogs, where we have a group of frogs called night frogs in India, where the male will embrace the female first, then the female will choose egg laying site. This all happens in perennial cliffs in the Western Ghats. And then the male and female would uh, be together, and female will lay the eggs by doing a handstand. Okay, it means he goes up, then lays the eggs on a twig which is just over the flowing water. Then after that, female leaves. What male does is something phenomenal, where male goes and patches the egg. This story is, I think, very famous now, because there's also a movie after this small musical sort of song, which is done by Prashant and our own friends like Dr. Girija were involved in this. This is called Kappe Raga, which is quite famous now. You can watch this as well, but you can see how the female is. You can see female is here down. She does the handstand and releases the egg on the string. She releases the egg now. Female is below, male is above. This is a video from Guru Arja sir, who's leading amphibian researchers from our state. So this is the last stage where the male is going to patch the eggs. So probably to conserve water in them, prevent desiccation, or to make it inconspicuous for the predators. Reasons are unknown, but quite an interesting behavior. This particular species is named after its behavior as a mud factory frog or a kumbara night frog. You see, even nowadays, species can be named after their behavior, which is quite interesting. And some of them can build foam nests. Some of the frogs, like tree frogs, especially in India, build a foam which is made from the secretions of their oviducts, or in females, they have a duct which passes the eggs called oviduct, which releases the secretions. And then that secretion is made into a small a bubble-like or a balloon-like structure, which is called foam nest. You can see here, this is the female, and already there are two males. This male was in amplexus and third male as the because there's so much of competition. That's not needed to see because of the skewed sex ratio. There's a lot of competition for mating or amplexus with the females. You can see this is how they build the foam nest. When female will lay the egg inside, male will release the semen or sperm. Then fertilization is happening within these foam nests. And this foam nest is so strong, it has a sort of a very hard, sort of gelatinous membrane like. But once the tadpoles are developed, the tadpoles would directly fall into water. So they have a sense that there is water below. Because if they do not keep these eggs above the water surface, then these tadpoles would directly fall into land because these tadpoles are not terrestrial tadpoles, aquatic tadpoles. So frogs do have some sense of memory, and also they can spatially recognize uh, what type of habitat it is and choose habitat for breeding. Okay. Unique parental behavior. This is some of the species not from India. Uh, this is called Suriname food from South America. You can see uh, for those people who have triophobia, maybe you should not watch them because these frogs, females especially, Suriname toads, is a toad basically, lay their underdeveloped eggs, uh, on their skin actually, means they transport the eggs into their skin and they're buried inside the skin. And after that, a thick layer of skin is developed on that. And the babies directly comes out making holes in the skin. Quite interesting. So you sacrifice your skin, not exactly sacrifice because there's two layers of skin here. The baby is coming out from the skin. You can see in this image how the baby is coming. There's one more marsupial frog where you can see the eggs are carried by the female on her back, like how the kangaroos carry their babies. So the tadpoles would directly come out or emerge from this. And here is a gastric brooding frog. This is an extinct species from Queensland, Australia, where these species would keep their eggs inside their belly, means abdomen, and directly the young frogs would come out. And it's believed that they would stop secreting all the gastric juices and gastric enzymes for almost weeks to months until these froglets emerge from their mouth. And this is a recent study by our own friend, Dr. K. Sheshadri, who studied for his doctoral thesis on these challenge routes, these challenge routes or bubble nest frogs. These are bush frogs, where he found very interestingly this particular group of reed frogs breed inside a bamboo called Auckland bamboo. Even Auckland bush frog is known to do that, or reed frog. So what is interesting is these bamboos have tiny holes made by nibbling of some species of squirrels, forest squirrels, and these uh, holes are exactly of this body girth or size of these males and females, and uh, the females would go and lay the eggs inside after fertilization. Uh, Sorry, males and females would mate and release the egg. Then the male would guard the eggs. That is quite interesting. Male would guard the egg inside this bamboo holes, okay, or the bamboo shoot. And if in an experiment where he removed this uh, males out, he was observing that most of the eggs were eaten up by other males. So that means there was some sort of a cannibalism in this particular species. So why males are guarding? Because other males come and eat the eggs. So this is sort of a parental care by the male individual or father. Okay, you can see how the young froglets come out. As I told you, this is a sort of direct development seen in the bush frogs. In the group, both the groups, Rawat cystis and Pseudophylatus, we see this type of direct development in bush frogs. And dancing frogs is one another species I think most know already about. These particular species, group of genus called Nectrizalus from the Western Ghats of India, sort of move their legs in a sort of circular fashion where they're initially it was thought it's for saying to the female that hey, I'm here. It is like a dancer, great dancer like Prabhudev or something like that. So, but this later scientists kept some robot frogs in front of this, and they made the robot frogs do this action, and they saw that females were never attracted to this. Then when they did the same thing with the males would immediately jump and try to sort of get rid of this robot frog. Then they eventually understood that this behavior is not exactly for attracting the mate, but to establish a territory because these are dancing in perennial springs on the Western Ghats, and these have a lot of noise. So if the display is done, it can be seen by males, and ultimately females are going to come to this height where the male is called, because ultimately it's going to be seen by the female. But in between, if anybody comes here, he's going to do a kick. So the dance may become a kick. I think, yeah, that is the foot flying actually. And if other male comes, generally it may become into a kick. And some of them show crypticism also. And as I told you, it's very difficult to identify frog species in the field because many of them look alike. So that's why you have to take multiple characters. Other than morphology, you can also take morphometry, size, and distribution data and acoustics. This is a glandular bush dog, and this is a variable bush dog which can vary in color. They almost look alike, except for the spots. The spots are again not very specific. The spots may not be there, but if you see for an untrained eye, this looks similar. Okay, the calls are totally different. And this is we in search of the indigo bush dog, which is found only in the peak of the Kudremukh, and it has an indigo patch here, beautiful frog. So going on to taxonomy quickly, I will tell you how to identify some of the groups of frogs at least. And frogs can be identified by looking at their feet, where they live. If they are having no webs in their feet, they're generally terrestrial frogs like this. They have no webbing at all. They may have a digging apparatus in their legs to dig and burrow, and if they have webbing, generally they're aquatic, like this. They have webbing completely. If they're complete webbing, probably they're aquatic species. And if they have discs like this, they are climbers. You can see a disc which helps in attaching to surfaces to climb. Bush frogs and tree frogs have this. And if they have disc and this type of webs, they can be called as arboreal species, means they can fly as well. Gliding species like Malabar gliding frog have this. You can see the disc as well as web. This is the disc, this is the webs in the tree frog. So, and also skin can be differentiating factor. Some of them have smooth skin, some of them may have warts and spiculate skin, and warty skin is seen in toads, whereas frogs also can have this texture. You can see shagreen, is leather-like, wrinkled, or granule-like, or tubercle-like, tuber, potato-like tubers, or gland-like. And eyes also may have different pupillar structures. They may either be horizontal, rhombus, round, patchy, dentition like lines. You might have heard famous star-eyed frog and Auckland reed frog. They, the salazotes which I showed just now, the bubble nest frog. The eyes are quite interesting, and this is the eye of the pig nose frog. So they also have an additional protection for the eyes called nictitating membrane. Okay, and as of now, as of yesterday, we have 8,700 species of amphibians. In that 80 to 90% are actually frogs. You can see 7,700 are frogs, and followed by salamanders and newts, which are temporal in their distribution, means they're not in tropic regions, they're temporal regions. And these are Sicilians, which are very rare again in the tropics. And the trend has been increasing. And why do we see this type of a trend in discovery of frog species in India? We have close to 450 plus species as of this year. Why this trend is increasing after 2009? Because of use of molecular data and more observers and more eyes looking at it. And everybody is interested. As you see, a lot of people are interested in this talk also. So people are interested to know more about these critters. And Buffonidae is one of the groups which are called toads. Toads can be identified by their warty skin. This gland called parotid gland. And this is a common Indian toad, which is extremely common across Indian subcontinent. This is a Dattaphrena scaber, where you can see the tubercles or warts are pretty larger and conspicuous, and their parotid gland is quite tiny. And this is the only species what we know which dwells in freshwater streams called Malabar torrent toad. And this is the Malabar tree toad. This is the only toad which climbs trees. Interesting, because toads are generally terrestrial species. This is the only toad which is not climbing. And the eggs generally are kept in string, but again, exceptions are there. Malabar tree toad lays eggs and clutches. Dicroglossidae are called fork-tongued frogs. And these are generally very common. These are called cricket frogs. Minervaria is the genus. And how do you sort of note them? They are sounds because their sounds they sound like crickets. Okay, this is the most common one across South India called Minervaria sahyadrensis. Then if it is there are five different species, but this is the most common around Karnataka. And Minerva sayadris is the most common in Karnataka as the smallest species of cricket frogs. And we have bullfrogs. If they have tiger-like bands and a long snout, we call it as Indian bullfrog, and a very supratympanic fold, a fold above the tympanum is very strong, and a long snout. We call it as Indian bullfrog, which is one of the largest species in India. And then followed by we have another species called Patricus crassus or Jordan's bullfrog. So the snout is smaller and also they have spots instead of bands. If you see these are here, you see more of spots. And Spirotheca is another genus called burrowing frogs. Uh, Dobson's burrowing frog is one example. Like that, you have around 5 to 6 different species, and it's very easy to identify. You have to just look at their leg. Maybe you have to look at their leg for digging apparatus, and their snout is generally angular and also very strong supratympanic fold. And overall build is very stout. It's like compressed body they have. So Ranidae is another group which is found near water bodies. These are called golden back frogs earlier. Now also we can refer to them as golden back frogs because they have a golden back. Earlier they were called as Hyloranas and then they were brought back to Hydrophylax and Endosilurana. Now they are again back to Hyloranas. Not to worry on the taxonomy because taxonomy in amphibians is quite dynamic as I mentioned earlier. This is called Endosilurana intermedius. There's also a Doni species in the south, in the Kerala, but this is from Karnataka. So they call from the surface of water, as you mentioned. If you see any ponds or small ditches where a frog is calling on the surface of water, probably it is Rouse intermediate golden back. And also we have this fungoid frog, which calls like raindrop, like that. So this is easy to identify, reddish top, black on the side, white on the vent. Okay. And Ranixalidae is a group of Indian, it is very endemic to India. It's called Indirana or leaping frogs. Again, it is difficult to identify because they almost look like cricket frogs, but the overall body is stunted, like, it is very compact, whereas cricket frogs have an oblong or long body. And how do we identify them? Because they are very common near rocky outcrops. And the tadpoles are very easy to, if you see tadpoles, which I showed you earlier also, are aquatic, it is definitely an Indirana because Indirana is the only known species right now which lays tadpoles on the rocks, and the tadpoles feed on algae on the rocks. And microhelid is another group which is narrow mouth frog. I think very easy to identify. They have very narrow hyoid bone or hyoid bone. Their jawbone is very narrow. As a result, their snout is not that long, like you saw bullfrog very long. This snout is very short. Again, differentiating them may be a little difficult, but yeah, in the field it is easy to observe. The This is called the reddish burrowing frog, which has a black spot here on the groin. And this is very easy. Ornate narrow-mouthed frog, which has ornamental patches. It has a line on the top like this. It is the horizontal line. We call it as laterite. If it has striations and smaller than this, okay, and like it goes like Y shape, then it is Sholigari. And this is the recently described species from Mangalore called Mangalore nanomotor. And the tadpoles are very easy to observe. They have large heads. And this is the largest species called Uperodon. Is another microhyle. You can see the snout is one. If they have marble-like patches, it's called marbled ramonella. And if they have varying patches on the top, it's called variegata. There's also cystoma. Cystoma has a generally roundish snout. And Nyctibatrachidae, how to identify them? They have wrinkled skin and rhomboid eyes. Again, extremely cryptic species. There are I think more than 15 species, but extremely difficult to differentiate them because only based on geography and calls maybe we are able to differentiate. But otherwise, if you keep them all together, you can't really say which one is which because all of them look similar. Okay, this is the smallest one called minimus. This is the largest so far called grandis, and this is very common in Karnataka called Kimpolensis. And this is the frog, dog night frog, which I talked about, which we went in search of for their sounds here. This is the Kumbaranite from which I spoke about already. And Micrizalus is dancing from uh, another group called Micrizalide, dancing frogs. And what is interesting to observe is their body is long and it is more like a rectangle. That is quite interesting. And also these are the ones who dance, which I already showed, and they come in different textures and print. And again, it is not extremely easy to identify. Like some groups, it's fairly difficult to identify even Micrizalus group. But yeah, based on again geography, it's easier to identify. Okay, Rhacophoridae is the largest, one of the largest groups where we have tree frogs and bush frogs. We have two genuses of bush frogs in India called Pseudophylotus and Raotsistes. Pseudophylotus, generally, how do you identify? They have this supratympanic patch, which is not generally seen in Raotsistes, and their uh, vocal sacs are not that transparent. Okay, this is the most common species called Wayanad bush frog, which is seen across Karnataka, most of the places, and they make sound like tick 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 tick. So there are two types of notes of calls in this species, and this is the variable bush frog. Generally comes in different colors, and the calls are tick 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 tick, three notes at a time. So, and this is the glandular bush frog, as I showed you earlier. Glandular bush frog has glandular spots on its belly or the groin. Okay, this is the tuberohumerus. It has a tuber-like protrusion on the humor bone. Humor is your upper hand bone. So because of that, it was named as tuberohumerus. But if you go towards Maharashtra, even the Bombay bush frog is quite similar, but their sounds are slightly different. Okay, and this is the Coorg yellow bush frog. Very easy to identify. Yellow bush frog with the blue eye ring, and this is what I showed you. Oakland reed frog, the ice. This also lives inside the bamboo. This is the indigo bush frog, as I showed. Polypodids is another genus of tree frogs, where you can see hourglass tree frog and common tree frog. Hourglass has a hourglass mark, and if you don't find this mark, it is a common tree frog. And Rhacophorus, we have Malabar gliding frog in the very common in the Karnataka, which is green in color. And as I showed you earlier, that this is the small tree frog, which has a lateral line on the sides. And what are the threats for their life? You know that road is the problem and deforestation and meat, and also uh, frogs are getting exported to other countries. Like even I heard from a friend, a good friend, that Malabar gliding frogs are getting exported from India. So it's quite threatening to know that. And also there's a fungus which has already killed about 10 to 15 percentage of frog population in the uh, temperate zones. Okay, and we don't have much reports as of now from India, but yeah, there could be outbreak of this also in Indian species. This is a fungus called BD fungus, Bacteriococcitridium fungus, dendrobatitis, BD. This kills by causing skin infection, because you know that skin is the most important part of the fungus as they breathe through the skin. And also, what are the benefits from them? We have a lot of benefits because the skin secretes a lot of chemicals like antimicrobial peptides, which can be harvested and used as antibiotics and chemicals or drugs. And also, diseases like H1N1, they've extracted chemical from the fungoid from the skin secretions. And they're a lot of use for us because they control the insect population. And also, they are part of the food chain. They're getting eaten up by even other groups of animals like birds or snakes. You know that it's a balance of the ecosystem. So they're helping in balancing the ecosystem. Okay. And they're also ecological indicators since they breathe through their skin. Any chemical in the environment can harm them. If you see any frog with such malformations, that means the environment is affected. Okay. How do we save them? You can save them by saving their habitat. And what would the world look like without the frogs? It would look like this: your bathroom, your no, your kitchen, and all the other places would be just full of insects. And we conduct workshops to educate people, and also uh, because of the citizen science, we were also able to publish a couple of uh, papers and research papers with the help of people. And also, I was also influenced by these type of citizen science workshops. I was able to discover uh, a new species of frog. And if you are interested, we conduct workshops in Bislegat and other places also. You can join to enjoy the real essence of this particular topic, because whatever you've seen so far is just pictures and videos, but if you want to really observe that and see, you have to be in the field. So there's a app or website called biodiversity portal where you can also upload your data and observations. and there's an app called Frog Find app. I think it is not available right now, but right now we don't have a proper guide for Indian amphibians, so we have to wait for a couple of books to come up. So because all the books names have changed, if you refer any previous data, the names might be changing. As I told, taxonomy is dynamic. If you want to identify, you can send the photos to people who work in the field. The photo should be like this. It's called dorsolateral view, so that we can check all the characters from the top as well as the side. Okay. Yeah. I want to thank all these people who has been a great support in my field work and also lab work, etc., and supported in all forms. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir, for such a wonderful session. Now the session is open for discussion. If you have any questions, you can ask the speaker by unmuting yourself or by dropping message in the chat box.
Hi, Vineeth, can you hear me? This is Roy. Hey, wonderful talk. Am I
Thank
audible?
you. Yes, yes, Anirudh.
Okay. Hey, so really good talk. Where was this? You talked about this frog population that has lost the ability to hear, right? The scientific reports. Where is that frog
Yeah.
from? Do you remember?
The the Harlequin frogs, I think they are from South America.
Okay, it's really interesting because there is another interesting there is a cricket that I'm sure you know about it. There these Hawaiian crickets that actually lost their ability to call or hear because of
Yes.
some parasite that was actually attracted to their call. So I really wonder if something like that is happening there. But that was in an island system, so I'm not sure. These are not from islands, right?
No, no, it's not from Ireland. It's from the mainland of South America.
Very interesting. Okay, and also another question is I'm not aware of any studies, especially in India, where people have done any sexual selection work based on calls. In the sense, what do females actually find attractive? Of course, all the frogs are calling, but then within a population, what are the
Yeah,
variations
yeah,
that are available within a population that the female selects? So, are you
correct,
aware
correct.
of any studies in India or?
In India, of course, there are not much studies in the context of behavior, but I've heard of studies abroad where they have done a lot of studies on the call characters, and they find out that in different species, the selection varies based on different temporal properties. Like some of them, it depends on the call duration. Some of them based on the frequencies. So it can vary with the species. That's what, as of now, what I know from my review of literature, that uh, it varies in the species, but dominant frequency is one character which most of the species would choose. But yeah,
I see.
it depends. But in India context, there has not been any studies so far.
And do you know of any frog species that cheat? In the sense, in crickets, for instance, there are these bafflers that actually cut a hole in leaf to amplify their sound. Are there similar cases in frogs? Have you seen in the
Uh,
wild?
I have seen in urban setup even frogs like it's my personal observation that species like Minervaris have this small cricket frog is calling in small drainages. So you know that drainage is a closed setup. It's sort of amplifying its sounds in the drainage. But such studies have been already done in the other parts of the world. That some frogs amplify their sounds by using closed systems. Yeah.
Ah, okay. Okay, thanks a lot. Great talk.
Yeah.
Am I
Thank you.
audible, sir?
Yes.
Sir, why the females are turning into male nowadays?
Females are turning into male, is it? Which frog you have sort of reported this or seen? Like,
Sir, recent articles they are saying that most of the crop population is decreasing and turning into males.
generally, generally males as such, uh, males are more in number. Sex ratio is quite skewed. But even I am not very sure what exactly, because is it like temperature dependent sex determination like in reptiles? No, but we don't have clear cut answers why there's a skewed sex ratio, and probably chemicals can influence and change their sex. That can happen. But what is innately causing more males to be there than females in majority of the, it's not that all the frogs have more males. Some of them may have more females also, but majority of the species it's more male. But we don't have clear cut answers right now.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Sir, I wanted to ask in which region do we find dancing frogs?
Dancing frogs are found throughout the Western Ghats. If you go and visit any perennial streams, means streams which flow throughout the year, you can definitely find dancing frogs. If you from Karnataka, I would suggest you to visit some places like Katlikan, where there is Kotigara dancing frog. Very large populations are there. But even in other parts, you see Niluvasi and many other species like saxicola, if you go to parts of Satleshpur, etc. But they are found throughout the Western Ghats, perennial streams here.
Sir, in Agumbe will we find that?
Absolutely. You will find there are some spots in Agumbe where you also find Iluosi. And I think Kotigara, I'm not sure. I think, yeah, even Kotigara is found. Yeah, it is found.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Am I
Yeah,
audible?
thank you. Yes.
Sir, you said that that frogs will be breeding in the bamboo, right?
Yeah.
So why they choose especially bamboo? Why not some other tree?
Because bamboo, that bamboo shoots have nodes and internodes. And in the internode, like imagine these is the like a space, like imagine this is the nodes, okay, of my fingers crevice. Okay, this is a node. This space is called internode. The internodes, they have hollow cavity. That's the reason. Because uh, as far as I know, I don't know, I'm not a plant taxonomist, but bamboo is the species in which you find this sort of cavity inside the internode. So probably that's the reason. But how did they know it? Evolutionarily, maybe they are sort of trial and error. Might be they have studied to get into the bamboo. Yeah.
Thank you.
So one
Yeah.
simple question, sir. Every month in the Herb Buzz magazine, I see that many new frogs, new species are being identified. Still, we are into research from 15, 25, or 100 years. But still, we are into the identification of the frog species, sir. How is it? Please answer.
Yeah, true. Because people are just behind just naming them, identifying them, but we are not going beyond one step beyond and trying to understand behavior because uh, naming is sort of uh, giving them recognition something. So most of the things are happening around taxon, but I think we need to go beyond that and do more of natural history studies so that we understand more about their behavior and other characters. Yeah, because unless we don't know what is there, definitely we can't work. So I'm not saying that taxonomy is bad, but taxonomy is the basic now foundation. We have to build on that. Yeah.
Sir,
Hello,
one more
good
question.
evening. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Vineeth,
Yes.
first
Yes.
of all, thank you for the excellent presentation, which was very informative. I have two questions from the presentation. You mentioned about the Bornean species, which is lungless, which is without lungs. So, does it breathe through the skin or has it any particular adaptation? And the second question is, do we find any limbless forms of amphibians in India?
Yes, ma'am. So in the flat-headed Bornean frog, it's an aquatic species. So you know that aquatic species generally breathe through their skin, so they don't really need lungs. So they're completely adapted to breathe through their skin. That's the first answer. Then the second question: uh, Are there any limbless amphibians? I think you asked limbless only. Are there any
Yeah,
limbless amphibians? Yeah,
that
there
is
are. I think
Ichthyophis
close.
kind,
Yeah,
Ichthyophis
yeah.
or
We have.
Amphibians
Yeah,
Sicilians.
we have. I think close to I think 40 species. I'm not exactly remembering number, but I think around 40 species of Sicilians we have. Yeah,
In which
Western
region?
Ghats, in Western Ghats as well as in the Northeast India. There's a Northeast Indian genus called Giniophis, but Ichthyophis is found in the south, means Western Ghats.
Okay, thank you so much.
Welcome.
Sir, one more question. Uh, how do we spot the frogs? Like, do we use playback method or something like that?
Spotting for what purpose? Like, can you tell me? To study them or just to
Yeah, to
photograph what?
study them.
See, you have to be in the field at the right time. So if you are in the monsoon, you would be able to hear them actively sort of vocalizing or calling. Then you would just follow their sounds and just try to track them. It's like a game. Okay, it's fun. I mean, you try that. No need to do playback. So it may or may not work. And also, I don't recommend to do that because it may also interfere with their breeding pattern. So what you can do is just observe, go sit there and try to listen to the sounds, and then definitely you'll be able to approach that like a Lombard effect, right? As you go closer to the object, the sound intensity or the amplitude increases. So the closer your sound will hit on your ears. The moment it hits on your ears, you know that you're very close to the subject, and then point it and tackle. You have to carry a torch because most of the frogs are active in the night. Yeah.
Now the session is about to end. For the further doubts, you can contact the speaker. The mail ID will be provided in the WhatsApp group. Thank you.
Thank you all.